What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Guiding Keys, the story of Kingdom Hearts presented by the Unlockables podcast. As always, my name is Eric. I've been your host, your guide through this adventure through the world of Kingdom Hearts and through the wonderful mind of series creator and director Tetsuya Nomura. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in wherever, whenever, in time and space you may be located. It means a lot to me that you're willing to stop by, check out the show, see what is going on in the world of video games, or in the case of this mini-series, what is going on in the world of Kingdom Hearts. We are finally here. We have reached past Kingdom Hearts 3, the last episode of Guiding Keys. We wrapped up Kingdom Hearts 3 and set up a bunch of plot threads that are going to be going forward into Kingdom Hearts 4, or more than likely going into Kingdom Hearts 4, set up some speculations and kind of started to tie everything up on the Xehanort saga in a nice loose bow, but we're not quite past all that yet because we have to finish a few more episodes, a few more games before we're fully at the point where we will have no more episodes of Guiding Keys until Kingdom Hearts Missing Link and Kingdom Hearts 4 come out, unless there's enough relevant information where I feel like I can have like an update episode of like a major trailer comes out or a major interview with Tetsuya Nomura that I think I can elaborate on. But most likely, once we finish these 3 upcoming games, we will be done for the foreseeable future. Now, today, if judging by the title of the episode you probably saw, we're going to wrap up Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. We are going to go and finish off the mobile game, and I explained to you in the first part of that game, the reason I split this into before and after Kingdom Hearts 3 is because I thought that was the best way to kind of explain some of the information that was relevant to Kingdom Hearts 3. I felt like the first part of Union Cross leading up to the Keyblade War was necessary information to kind of enhance what you learned in Kingdom Hearts 3. And I felt like the stuff that happened after that kind of has to deal with the stuff that happens at the conclusion of Kingdom Hearts 3. And my thoughts on this second part of Union Cross, it really feels like I teased when this episode was coming out and I did some posts that I felt like this was a kind of final exam for Kingdom Hearts knowledge, because a lot of the complex concepts that come into play across the entire series really all kind of come into play in the second part of Union Cross. So I hope you've been taking notes. I hope you've been studying, because you can essentially treat this as your final exam. I do have one announcement that I have to make regarding an update on the mobile game experience. If you go back to the Union Cross episode, you'll hear me say that the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross Dark Road app is still downloadable. Even though the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross portion of the game is offline, you could go and download the app and still watch all the cutscenes from Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, and you could play Kingdom Hearts Dark Road as its own standalone gaming experience, because it was a single-player experience that details the youth and some adventures of Xehanort before he turns into who we ultimately know he is. This information is no longer accurate. As I was doing research for this episode, I went to re-download the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross Dark Road app, and I could not find it anywhere on the App Store. And my research led me to an article from Game Rant from September 2024 saying that the game was suddenly delisted from all mobile app stores. As of right now, you cannot experience the cutscenes from Union Cross as they were intended, and you cannot play Dark Road as was intended, which is really disappointing considering I needed to play Dark Road for research. And now I feel like I won't be able to offer an authentic experience that I played to be able to break down for you guys. I know these are only mobile games, gacha mobile games, but these 2 components, Union Cross and Dark Road, have some of the most important story bits that we can conjecture on going forward into Kingdom Hearts 4. These lore points that are in these mobile games are critical to our understanding and our dissection of what could possibly be coming into Kingdom Hearts 4. And now these things are just unavailable. The only way you can seek out this information is watch the Kingdom Hearts back cover movie that details like the first part of the Union Cross story in a not very clear way, as I stated in the previous Union Cross episode, And the only way you can experience Dark Road is by watching the cutscenes or watching lore explainer videos that the community members have done a fantastic job on. But you yourself cannot experience this. And it's kind of insane that the information that you need that is going to lead up to Kingdom Hearts 4, that is going to kick off the next arc of storytelling, is now basically unavailable in no way. And it's really, really frustrating. I hope Nomura and Square Enix have plans to reintroduce this information in some kind of format, even if it was like how they did 358 Days and recoded for the HD collections. But this is now the 3rd/4th KH game that is being experienced today that is not in its original intended state. And that is really, really, really frustrating. I have my issues with these games, but Square Enix simply taking them away because they were no longer profitable and taking up server space is incredibly infuriating and frustrating. And I think it's really, really dumb. Especially, like I said, the information in this set of games, being Union Cross and Dark Road, are integral to the future of the franchise. And if Nomura is somehow aiming for a fresh start in Kingdom Hearts 4, he has a lot of information to tell people if he's planning on following these plot threads that he set up in these mobile games. And he has to be, because the information that we learned in Kingdom Hearts 3 with Lucio and the Foretellers returning ties into all the stuff that happened in part 1 that is going to happen in this part that I'm going to tell you, and happens in Dark Road. So really, really frustrating that the mobile experience is just gone now. The only way you can get any of this information is to listen to a podcast like this, watch it on YouTube, and like watch the cutscenes and watch lore explainer videos. It's absolutely frustrating. It's absolutely mind-boggling. I'm just tired of games getting erased. I'm tired of companies just taking games away from us. You know, this is why people say if purchase doesn't mean ownership, then pirating is not illegal, right? And then it's not stealing if you never owned it in the first place. And I kind of get that sentiment. But enough about that. I'll have to figure out how I'm going to approach the Dark Road issue once I get to that point, because I've spent most of my time just trying to wrap my head around the second part that I'm going to explain to you. So that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into part 2 of the story of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. The information that I'm about to relay to you in this part relies heavily on the narrative that was established in the first part of this episode that came out before Kingdom Hearts 3. I highly encourage anyone who hasn't listened to part 1, or maybe it's been a while since you've listened to part 1, to go back and do so before listening to this part, as I won't be re-explaining things in super deep detail that happened in part 1. I'll offer you a synopsis of the events so you kind of can connect it to the first part. But I'm writing this under the assumption that you've listened to the information in the first episode and have at least a basic foundation of everything that is going on with the Foretellers, the Master's Plan, the Keyblade War, our player character, all that good stuff. When we last left our player character in the events of Union Cross, the horrific conflict known as the Keyblade War had just taken place, taking the lives of the Foretellers and countless Keyblade wielders in the process. This terrible event was orchestrated by the Master of Masters in order to strike a blow against his age-old enemy, the Darkness, or rather, the 13 manifestations of darkness that pose the biggest threat. He had used this destructive conflict to trap a number of these darknesses in the pure hearts of his apprentices, the Foretellers, and himself. And with the Foretellers' destruction, it was assumed that some of these prime darknesses were destroyed as well. Meanwhile, Foreteller Ava had been fulfilling the role assigned to her by the Master, to gather Keyblade wielders from across all the unions and form a special group called the Dandelions. This select group of Keyblade wielders were meant to survive the Keyblade War and live into the world beyond in order to forge a new life and protect the light. As the player, we had been invited to the Dandelions by Master Ava herself as well as Skald and Ephemer, two of our friends who were set to be the new Union leaders once the Keyblade War was over. But we refused and chose to stand with our Union in the destructive conflict, fighting until we almost literally died of exhaustion and injury. But luckily, at the end of that conflict, Ephemer and Skald emerged from the dream world they had been waiting in to avoid the Keyblade War and took us into the new world, unbeknownst to us and the new Union leaders, as a digital recreation of Daybreak Town. In this process, we had our memories wiped of the Keyblade War, sparing us the strife and suffering we would surely have endured from remembering such a terrible event. This is where our story picks up. The new Union leaders of the Dandelions, being Skald, Ephemer, Lauriam, Brain, and Ventus, meet up in the Keyblade graveyard before they themselves enter the data world, but little do they know that things have already gone off the rails, as Ven's presence amongst the leaders' ranks is a signal to the players that darkness is at work. Remember, a girl named Strelitzia, who's Lauriam's sister, was chosen to be one of the new Union leaders, but she was murdered by the darkness-possessed Ventus, who then took her place. Whether this is a virus in the Master's original plan, as Luciu would say, or if the Master intended for this to happen when he let the darkness get a peek at his Book of Prophecies, we're not sure. And even though the new Union leaders are unaware of Ven's treachery, as is he because he has no memory of taking Strelitzia's life, he was just possessed, we, the player, know that something is amiss, and it makes every scene Ven shows up in worth watching. Strelitzia's absence is immediately noticed by her brother Lauriam, and he begins to undertake a search to locate her, knowing that she was one of the Dandelions. Lauriam confers with one of Strelitzia's party members, a girl named Elrena, who said when she last saw Strelitzia, she was looking for our character, our player character. Parentheses here, side note. Remember that Lauriam and Elrena are Marluxia and Larxene from Organization 13. This is their tie back to the ancient Keyblade legacy. They were literally part of the Dandelions. They are present at these events. They just don't remember it. After Lauriam and Ephemer speak with us, this plot takes a bit of a break as the story takes some time to have a narrative reason to introduce new mechanics. The world they are in begins to glitch, and it is during this narrative interlude that the intelligent brain puts together that they are not in an alternate world as they had practiced entering during their Dandelion training, but rather a data version of Daybreak Town and the surrounding areas. Brain also pretty quickly figures out during his study of the Book of Prophecies that something has gone terribly wrong. He figures out that Strelitzia was meant to be one of the new Union leaders and that Ven was incorrectly in her place, which causes him to draw another conclusion that there are forces of darkness pulling the strings behind the scenes, attempting to manipulate events so that the goals of the Dandelions and the Master are never achieved. Brain, alongside Skald, Ephemer, and our character, confront Ven about this truth, which he vehemently denies. Ven is so sure that he received his Union Leader rulebook from Master Ava herself, having false memories planted by the darkness that convinced him that he was chosen for this role. As he was pressed further, he concentrates and discovers hazy images and memories of what actually happened. His body had been used to kill Strelitzia. This revelation was too much for Ven to handle, and he passes out, slipping into a state of unconsciousness. Lauriam was not present at this meeting, however, and probably for the better. He was still busy searching for his sister, a search that led him into the basement of the Daybreak Town Tower, where he discovered an individual there in the darkness that we are quite familiar with. There in the depths of the tower, observing some old machinery, was none other than Maleficent. Interlude, hang on to your butts because this gets complicated. How on earth is Maleficent here? Well, it all goes back to Kingdom Hearts 1. Remember, when an Ansem-possessed Riku used his dark Keyblade to unlock Maleficent's heart by literally stabbing her in it, it had the intended consequence of separating her heart from her body. Seeing that her heart and body were now separate, it was inferred that during the events of Birth by Sleep when she met Master Xehanort, he shared with her knowledge not only about the 7 Princesses of Heart, but time travel as well. Remember, back to our Dream Drop Distance episode, the criteria for time traveling is that only your heart can move along the timeline and that you must have the knowledge of time travel shared with you. This caused Maleficent to travel back in time to try and succeed where she had failed once before in the Enchanted Dominion, the events of Sleeping Beauty. But she was once again defeated in her dragon form by our player character from Union Cross and Prince Philip. Retreating to her castle, she expressed frustration that events had played out exactly the same way as they had before, despite her possessing knowledge of what would happen. It was at this point she was approached by none other than one of the 13 darknesses. It took her to Daybreak Town and explained to her that the world she was in were in fact data versions of the worlds that existed far before the time she meant to travel back to. The darkness took her to the basement of the Data Daybreak Town Tower and showed her a massive machine construct that was lined with what looked like pods, stasis pods, kind of like what Master Chief was in at the start of the Halo series. The darkness explained to her that these pods, known as arcs, are the only means by which someone can leave the data world and be transported into the real world. Before this can happen, though, this is where Lauriam comes across her in the basement, and as he tries to confront her, he is badly beaten, and in the process of this conflict, one of these 7 data arcs is destroyed. After this defeat, Maleficent and one of the Prime Darknesses use another pod/arc, the rightmost one, to exit the data world and appear in the basement of the real Daybreak Town Tower. Keep track of the remaining arcs as we go here because this is going to become important later. So Maleficent and Lauriam's battle destroyed one of the data arcs, and Maleficent took one to the real world, meaning there are 5 data arcs remaining in the data world. Also, I'll try to keep track of the location of all of the manifestations of darkness as well, and try to get a number as to how many are left remaining. Okay, so how does all this work? What do these arcs do? There's arcs in the data world that transport you to the real world, and since the data world's a copy of the real world, that means there's obviously arc pods in the real world, correct? Yes, dear listener, you are correct, and you are very smart. You are doing wonderful on your final exam here. Again, I have to thank Damo279 for their incredible story breakdown, as they explain how the arcs function in the data and in the real worlds. When Maleficent reaches the real world, she agrees to take the actual real world version of this pod and go into the future, and this is where she reappears during the events of Kingdom Hearts 2. Bear with me. You see, there are 7 arcs that were made in each of the data world and the real world. When you take an arc in the data world, it transports you into the real world at the present time. Damo279 in their handy breakdown of this concept says it, quote unquote, prints you in the real world with prints in quotations. The arcs in the real world serve a different purpose, considering that you don't have to escape a data version of the world when you ride in these arcs. The real world arcs, when you get in one, accelerate your body to/near the speed of light, and in the process, it strips your body away so that only your heart remains. This allows the heart to travel through time to a determined destination using a waypoint. To completely reform into a body and heart at your destination, you have to meet 2 requirements. 1, you need a medium at the destination to reform your body. 2, you need someone who remembers you or has memories of you in order to repopulate you with all of your memories and give you your original sense of self. Follow with me here? Let's use Maleficent as the example. So, in Kingdom Hearts 2, when we see Sora, Donald, and Goofy leave Yensid's tower for the first time, the crow brings Maleficent's cloak into the room where the good fairies were, and they remember it as Maleficent's cloak. This essentially creates her destination, her waypoint, by fulfilling the criteria laid out for time travel using the arcs. The medium is Maleficent's cloak. It's the thing that she's always wearing. It's something that has a very close personal connection to her. This fulfills the first requirement. And the good fairies have memories of Maleficent, fulfilling the second, thus allowing Maleficent to reform in Kingdom Hearts 2, thus offering an explanation for her seemingly random return. If you thought you'd have to remember all the way back to Kingdom Hearts 2 to connect something to this mobile game, I bet you probably didn't expect that. Kind of insane. Also, if you're keeping score, that leaves 5 arcs in the data world, 6 arcs in the real world, and 1 darkness that seemingly escaped into the real world with Maleficent. The darkness has also read portions of the Book of Prophecies, remember. The Master intentionally lets the darkness see this as kind of part of his plan. Seeing that Maleficent existed in it post-events of Kingdom Hearts 1, that could also be considered as adding to a waypoint for her in the future because it was already seen, it was already preordained, predestined to happen. That could also create her waypoint. The darkness did not take an arc with Maleficent into the future, choosing to stay behind in the present time of the real world for some sinister purpose. But as it went to check on the data, the darkness floated up to the giant computer console that is in front of all these arcs. It was confronted by a familiar face, as none other than Luxu entered the room with something wrapped in a white cloth tucked underneath his arm. We'll get back to Luxu in a second. We return to Lauriam lying unconscious on the ground in the basement of the data tower, and he's having a pleasant dream of sitting in a field of flowers with his sister before the Keyblade War, enjoying simpler times. He teases her about this apparent crush she's developed on our nameless Keyblade wielder, our player character, when this dream takes a sharp turn. Strelitzia vanishes and Lauriam turns to see what we can only see as a white-robed version of Strelitzia floating in the air and calling his name. This jolts him awake, and as he looks around, he sees that Maleficent is nowhere to be found. Not taking too much time to dwell on the dream, he decides to ascend from the basement and rejoin his fellow Union leaders. Meanwhile, Ven awakens from his slumber, overcome with grief at the revelations that had caused him to suffer. Tears stream down his face as he remembers that he was used, he was possessed to kill Strelitzia. As these events were happening, Brainscold and Ephemer are in the Foreteller's study, conference room, something like that. They are discussing the revelations about Ven and Strelitzia, coming to the conclusion that Ven was telling the truth, not knowing that he was used to commit such a horrible atrocity. They're also concerned at how close the darkness seems to be to them, and this kind of puts all of them on edge. But as they discuss this, who should enter the chamber having overheard everything? None other than Lauriam. He lashes out at his fellow Union leaders who try to restrain him, furious at them for having concealed Strelitzia's fate from him. And then with just awful timing, Ven too enters the room and confesses to Lauriam that he was the one who was responsible for Strelitzia's fate. Lauriam turns his rage towards Ven, summoning his Keyblade to strike him down, but Ephemer summons his Keyblade, blocking Lauriam's attack as the pressure and stress of the situation causes Ven to grab his head and scream in pain as he falls to his knees. Lauriam's reaction to finding out what actually happened to his sister caused a swelling of negative emotions, exactly the type of emotions the darkness thrives on. And as if on cue, one of the prime darknesses that had been hiding inside Ven chose this moment to reveal itself to the Dandelions. As the others turn their Keyblades on the darkness, Brain begins to question it, asking about its goals, its motivations. The darkness reveals this and more to answer Brain's question. First, it stated that its goals are little more than expansion, infection, and domination, that they exist to spread to all corners of every world, infecting them with darkness. It also reveals that when the first darkness we saw with Maleficent went into the real world, then sent her into the future, this began an irreversible process that would soon herald the destruction of Data Daybreak Town and the surrounding data worlds. This darkness that possessed Ven did so because it saw in the Book of Prophecies that Ven was a person mentioned in it as harboring darkness in the future. It tried to convince the Dandelions that this is what Ven wanted, that he wanted power, and that the darkness simply helped him by possessing Ven, killing Strelitzia, and planting him amongst the Union leaders. The Union leaders, however, don't buy it, and this explanation by the darkness causes Lauriam to fly into another rage as he lunges towards the darkness. But the darkness swats him aside easily, causing him to join Ven in unconsciousness. While Brain has ascertained that there were multiple darknesses, he asks this darkness if it is the only one currently here, which it says that it is. Summoning the familiar-looking Defender Keyblade, Brain rallies Skuld and Ephemer to fight the formless darkness to no avail. An injured Lauriam manages to regain consciousness and joins in the fight, making it a 4v1, and the timely arrival of our player character adds one more to that fight. The combined effort of the Union leaders and our character was enough to defeat this darkness, but it didn't matter as the darkness reformed itself mere moments after its defeat. Things looked grim for the Dandelions as the darkness summoned darklings to surround them. At this time, Ven regains consciousness and he realizes something. Yes, the darkness had used him, but in the process, it had extracted Ven's own darkness from his heart, leaving his heart devoid of any darkness. This means that Ven is a pure light, and his heart of pure light is capable of capturing and containing a prime darkness within it, just as the foretellers had done before they were supposedly eradicated in the Keyblade War. Ven's pure light destroyed the Darklings, and in one swift motion, Ven leapt at the darkness and was able to draw it inside of his own heart of light, trapping it and causing Ven to fall into yet another deep sleep. A short while later, Lauriam stands by Ven's bedside, apologizing to him as he sleeps. But as he does, his mind begins to wander, wondering if the darkness that was inside Ven was now a part of him. As Lauriam clenched his fist, we can guess at his thought process that this might be his best chance to put an end to Ven and the darkness once and for all their sakes. But he feels a touch on his hand behind him, and he swears he hears his sister's voice, begging him not to follow through with this course of action, which he does not. Ephemer then interrupts Lauriam, snapping him out of this state to inform him that Elrena had arrived. Elrena tells Lauriam and the Union leaders that a few days ago, a figure that looked like Strelitzia was seen walking with one of the masters, although this figure wore a white robe while the master who wore the familiar dark robe of the organization was most likely Luciu, who had entered the Data Daybreak Town for reasons that we're not yet sure of. Remember, the Data Daybreak Town allegedly contains a complete data copy of the town, which means it would contain data copies of all the residents who were there as well. Had Luciu entered the data world to extract Strelitzia's data copy? Remember, when he was in the real world, he was carrying an individual wrapped in a white robe under his arm before confronting the darkness, but the Union leaders and our character didn't have time to dwell on this information because they had bigger problems. With Maleficent's departure from the data world via the Arc Pod, the data world was now entering an irreversible protocol that would plunge it into the darkness of sleep, trapping everyone there. They had to find a way to escape and prevent it from the outside, so they took an unconscious Ven into the basement to look for a solution as Brain stopped for only a moment to grab the Book of Prophecies. Meanwhile, we're transitioning back to the real world, the real Daybreak Town, where we saw that Luciu had just entered the basement of the real Daybreak Town tower to see a prime darkness at the computer console. Under his arms was tucked some kind of figure wrapped in a white robe. From the previous cutscene that we just saw, Elrena had told us that a white-robed individual that looked like Strelitzia had been seen with Luciu in the data world, but that white robe was clearly walking on its own. The white robe that Luciu now had in the real world was slumped over, unable to move on its own as he carried it. Just something to keep in mind, that connection there. The darkness was surprised to see Luciu. Based on its brief viewing of the Book of Prophecies, it had thought that all the master's apprentices would be gone by now, but this clearly wasn't the case. It began to question Luciu as he loaded up the white-robed figure into one of the real Arc Pods to send into the future. The darkness was asking the Keyblade apprentice what he was doing. Luciu responded by telling the darkness that this was a seed of light to be planted in the future, referring to it as the true Dandelion before sending the pod into the future without any interference from the darkness, strangely enough. So that would make 5 pods that now remain in the real world if you're keeping track. Here we see Luciu once again not really following the master's instructions to a T. Remember, he was told to stay out of things and simply observe, but it looks like Luciu is choosing to actively interfere in an attempt to influence the outcome of events. So this would make him a traitor, as the master called him. But if you're subscribing to the belief that the master's complex plan would rely on the Master, knowing that these events would actually happen this way. Maybe it was Lu Shu's unpredictable nature that was actually a part of the Master's plan, a wrinkle of chaos that the darkness who had seen the Book of Prophecies was unable to account for. Again, there are two schools of thought here. Either the Master's plan has gone completely off the rails by Lu Shu going rogue and a darkness possessing Ven, or this is exactly what the Master had intended, knowing that no one would follow his instructions exactly. Despite us knowing that Lu Shu is the traitor and questioning whether or not the Master's plan was still intact, Lu Shu reconfirms his loyalty to the Master and his intentions to see the plan through. He tries to ascertain where the remaining darknesses would be, saying that there should be only 6 left if the Master's plan had been successful so far. But if that was the case, the remaining 6 should have been trapped in the data world, which is clearly not the case because one was in front of him right now. But this was the only thing standing in Lu Shu's way currently, and Lu Shu summons the Master of Masters Keyblade, the Gazing Eye. Lu Shu would know that he wouldn't be able to destroy the formless darkness. Maybe he has a plan for this. He wasn't just any old Keyblade wielder, he was trained by the Master of Masters himself. The stage is set for a titanic clash between Lu Shu and one of the Prime Darknesses, and this is a huge moment. One could argue that the success of the Master's plan and the fate of the whole world rests on the outcome of this confrontation. But the screen cuts to black, and we don't see what happens, but you feel like the implications of this outcome of this battle would be humongous. We return back to the Data Daybreak Tower where the Union leaders, our character and Elrena, have made our way down into the basement with an unconscious Ven. Time is running out to save not only themselves, but all the Dandelions that are still asleep in the data world. After a quick discussion, it's unanimously decided that the intelligent brain stands the best chance of figuring out how to free not only the Union leaders, but all of the Dandelions from the impending shutdown of the data world. Brain, the unconscious Ven, Lauriam, and Elrena would take 4 of the remaining 5 arc-pods from the data world into the real world, while Skull, Ephemer, and our player character would remain in the data world. Before Brain leaves, he gives his Master Defender Keyblade and the Book of Prophecies to Ephemer. Remember, this is the same Keyblade that Ericus and Aqua use later in the future. And as Skull and Brain and Ephemer and our character all stand there, it actually matches a description of a memory that the girl named Subject X said she could remember, that of 4 friends and a key. This plan leaves 1 remaining pod in the digital world. Keep that in mind. Brain and the others arrive in the real world tower basement, and Brain immediately gets to work trying to solve this problem. As he does this, he tells Lauriam and Elrena to take 2 of the pods as Ven takes a 3rd, and Brain would send them into the future. Well, they at first protest. Brain insists, saying that this way they at least ensure that the light will survive into the future, although Brain is unsure where they will end up in that future. Before they take off, Brain advises Lauriam to keep the goal of finding his sister in mind, for this could serve as a waypoint needed to land them somewhere in the future. Lauriam agrees, and as the arc pods begin to close on himself, Elrena, and the still unconscious Ven, the room begins to violently shake. Lauriam tries to yell to Brain that warning him something is coming, but there's nothing Lauriam or Elrena can do as their pods are whisked off into the future in a flash of light. This leaves 2 of the original 7 arc pods in the real world. The shaking subsides, and Brain is able to turn to see what his friend was warning him about, and entering the room in the familiar dark cloak is none other than Lu Shu. Lu Shu approaches Brain as Brain questions who he is, and Lu Shu explains that he is the 6th apprentice of the Master of Masters. Lu Shu asks Brain about the status of the other Union leaders, and Brain explains the situation to him. Lauriam had just escaped into the future. Ephemer and Skuld were still in the data world along with our character, and he was there speaking to Lu Shu. When questioned about the 5th, Brain explains to him the fate of Strelitzia, stating that she had been struck down. Lu Shu then asks Brain what his plan is, inquiring if he is going to take one of the one remaining pod into the future. Brain declines, saying that he plans to send the 2 remaining arc pods into the digital world, back into the digital world, and with the one additional that still remains in the data world, use all 3 to bring Skuld, Ephemer, and our character to the real world, then using those 3 arcs to send them into the future. Brain would remain here in the ruins of the dying world and dedicate his life to trying to free the remaining Dandelions from the digital world. And it is here that Luxu reveals critical information as he tells Brain his plan is reckless. Luxu reveals that the data world is actually working exactly as intended, and that once it falls into the darkness of sleep, anyone inside would be trapped there forever. This is its purpose as the Master apparently intended, a trap designed to capture the darknesses and allow them never to escape, and leaving it unable to ever be unlocked. After dropping this truth bomb on an already visibly shaken Brain, Luxu then begins to elaborate a bit more on the arc pods. He says that these lifeboats are incomplete, and anyone taking one of them would need 2 things at their destination: someone with memories of them and a vessel to occupy. This is interesting because when we discussed this earlier, the information we were told, which was from the Master himself, said that you needed someone with memories and a medium so you could reform your own body. We aren't really sure why this difference exists, but it seems intentional on Luxu's part. Also, Maleficent did not have a vessel. She simply reformed after having the medium and the memories of her. After hearing this information, Brain seems pretty downtrodden and defeated, but despite not knowing how the arc pods work or how he can save the Dandelions of Data Daybreak Town, he's still determined to try no matter how long it takes. Luxu then slowly approaches Brain until he is within arm's length of the young Keyblade wielder and says something interesting to him. He compliments Brain on his intelligence and then says it is a shame that Brain only has this lifetime and it's the only one that he's got. This sentence seems ominous since Luxu is standing so close to Brain, but we don't see what happens next as the screen cuts to black. Once again, the outcome of this moment could be enormous, but right now we just can't be sure of what happened or of Luxu's true intentions, as we've been unable to discern Luxu's true intentions for the entire game now. If the Master's intention was to use Luxu as a true wildcard in the events that are now unfolding, he certainly succeeded, as Luxu has now taken a larger role in the events that are taking place. And despite the darkness being the chief enemy, there's something sinister about Luxu's actions. But it's clear that this moment and the moment where Luxu clashes with the Prime Darkness in the real world are left intentionally ambiguous. We don't know how they end up. Back in the data world, things have taken a turn for the worst. As soon as Brain and the rest of his company left, Skuld, Ephemer, and our character were immediately surrounded by the danger that had been lurking nearby, as 4 of the Prime Darknesses revealed themselves. This was an impossible situation, considering that the last time the Dandelions fought one darkness, it took 5 of them just to momentarily dispel it. The darkness made us an ultimatum. They wanted Ephemer to unlock the connections between the data worlds so they could move on from Daybreak Town and infect all of them. There's a thing about a connecting station and Wreck-It Ralph world that I kind of skipped over because it's relatively minuscule in the grand scheme of the narrative. If Ephemer didn't comply, they would simply possess our character and make us do it themselves. Stubborn to the end, the 3 Keyblade wielders did not comply and all summoned their weapons to fight what they knew was a futile battle. As they took fighting stances under his breath, Ephemer told our character that as soon as the fighting started, we should jump in the only remaining pod and escape to the real world. He and Skuld would hold the darkness off while we escaped. But for one of the only times in the entire game, our player character speaks with text dialogue, a rare occurrence, and our player character gives a slight menacing grin and calls both Skuld and Ephemer fools. The worst had already happened. It turns out that Ven was not able to contain the darkness he attempted to capture within his heart, and this darkness instead had found its way inside of us, possessing us. We lunged at Ephemer, locking blades with him while shoving off Skuld, who attempted to reason with us. We commanded the darknesses to stay out of this, stating that we would take care of the Union leaders alone, which we do using our incredible power to overwhelm them. As the two Union leaders collapsed, we strolled over to Skuld, raising our Keyblade to strike a final blow, when suddenly, Ephemer shot a beam of light from his Keyblade which pierced our heart, opening a glitchy portal behind us and sucking us along with the 4 other darknesses into it. Ephemer was crushed, realizing that he had just doomed us, his best friend, to a terrible fate, and all he could do was apologize profusely. He approached the unconscious Skuld and lifted her up, and at the same time, with excellent timing, 2 pods from the real world materialized into the data world. After placing Skuld in one pod, Ephemer enters his own, taking one last look at the remaining pod that was meant for our character before escaping to the real world. Skuld and Ephemer arrive in the basement of the real Daybreak Town with no sign of anyone else there. Their 2 pods are the only 2 remaining, so it was easy for them to assume that Laurium, Elrena, Ven, Maleficent, and Brain had taken the other 5 to the future, considering none of them were there. They wouldn't have known that Luciu used one of the pods to send what he called the true Dandelion into the future, and they would not have known about the conversation that Brain and Luciu just had moments before the pods were sent back into the data world. But now Skuld and Ephemer were there alone. There's no sign of Brain and no sign of Luciu. Before escaping to the future, the 2 Union leaders make their way to the roof of the tower to see what has become of the world in the destructive wake of the Keyblade War, and what they see is indescribable. Devastation, as tornadoes suck up the water that once ran through the town's rivers. A swirling maelstrom of darkness floats overhead, sucking up everything into the sky, and it's a vicious-looking red and black horizon. The end was rapidly approaching for the Realm of Light. It would soon shatter into the thousands of separate worlds we know it as today. Looking on in horror, Skuld and Ephemer realize that time is running out. There's nothing they can do as they look on in horror. They make their way back to the arcs that will propel them into the future, and as the doors close, a tear falls from Ephemer's eye as he thinks about our character, their best friend that followed them into every dangerous situation, now trapped in the data world with the remaining darknesses. The doors to the pods close just as the entire Daybreak Town tower begins to collapse, debris from the entire building caving in to the basement. We return to our character, and we find ourselves in one of the corridors between data worlds. It almost looks like massive cables or something connecting Data Daybreak Town to the Game Central Station, as the place is called, and the portals to all the other countless data worlds. The darknesses congratulate us, thinking that one of their own had possessed us and used hatred and anger to goad Ephemer into opening the portal and allowing us access to the rest of the data worlds. We lied there breathing heavily, having undergone so many difficult, challenging battles in that day alone, but we managed a smile and a brief laugh before jumping up and using our Keyblade to seal the exit out of the other connecting corridor. The darknesses were stunned at what had just happened as our character taunted them, saying that we couldn't believe tricking them would be so easy. You see, we were never possessed by a darkness at all, only pretended to be in order to get ourselves and the darknesses sent to one of these connecting corridors. Ephemer had sealed the way into this space, and we had just sealed the way out, meaning that ourselves and the 4 prime darknesses were now trapped here. They dispersed angrily, searching for a way out as our character fell to our knees. Our body could take no more. We had sustained too many injuries in the fights that day. Our Chirithy came to us and we apologized for getting it trapped with us. Our Chirithy hugged us, and in a bright flash of white light, we were gone, leaving the darknesses trapped in one of the corridors between data worlds as the Data Daybreak Town slowly fell into the darkness of sleep as the Master intended. And as Master Ava correctly predicted, once the data worlds fell into darkness, they would enter a state of sleep. This logic tracks considering that the events of Dream Drop Distance and how the realm of sleep figures prominently into that story. But what would become of all the Dandelions trapped there, as well as our character? Well, as we and the countless other Dandelions floated in a white void, the Dandelions' Chirithy companions would appear and hug them, using their light to shield their hearts from the darkness of sleep. They transformed into the Spirit Dream Eaters, that features so prominently in Dream Drop Distance. So yes, the Dream Eaters are the Dandelions, and they are the spirits who protect those who fall into sleep from nightmares. Our character turns it to Archirthy and asks if we're going to fall asleep too, to which Archirthy responds that we actually have a choice. We could join our Dandelion companions in sleep, turning into a Dream Eater ourselves, or we could choose to end this life and our heart would meld into another and be reborn in a different lifetime. As we choose to be reborn into a later life, we get some glimpses, which would be a bit of a teaser for Dark Road, as to what this life would have in store for us. A woman holding a baby in a city, then handing it off to a stranger in a blue hood. This stranger takes this baby to islands that are familiar to us, away from everything to raise this baby and watch over him, the Destiny Islands. The baby grows up into an adolescent with striking white hair and tan skin, while the person in the blue robe collapses onto the sand at the end of their natural life. This young man would find himself in a new world, and there he would make a new friend that we will come to know as Ericus. If you haven't figured it out yet, we're seeing flashes and glimpses of the life of Xehanort. This ending was set up to make us, the player, believe that our character had reincarnated as Xehanort, which at the time sent everybody into an absolute frenzy, but this isn't actually the case. This was a troll by Nomura. We reincarnated as the blue-robed individual that took this baby, and this is revealed in Dark Road, but I'm just wanting to tell you this now and not play it off like, oh, the player is Xehanort, which I admit would have been an incredibly insane twist if they had stuck to it, but that's not what happened. Our character is the blue-robed individual that took the baby Xehanort and watched over them on the Destiny Islands. Seemingly content with the way our new life would go, we closed our eyes and hug Archirthy as our body fades and our hearts float away. Our player character's story is done. We get a little bit of an epilogue here. After our character's heart fades away to be reborn, we see some final scenes that let us know where everybody who escaped to the future kind of ended up. We see one pod in the ruins of Daybreak Town floating in the water, and as it opens, a silhouette of what looks like Ephemer stands up and looks out over the debris floating in the water, as well as a massive landmass in the distance. We see Maleficent reforming in Kingdom Hearts 2 as the Raven brings her cloak to Yensid's tower so the three good fairies can provide the memories she needs to reform. Lauriam has arrived in the Enchanted Dominion at some unspecified time in the future, as well as Elrena, who has arrived in the Dwarf Woodlands. Ven, meanwhile, has arrived in the Keyblade Graveyard, just as a silhouetted figure seems to be passing through. We can infer, based on Xehanort's writings in Birth by Sleep, that this is where/when he met Ven for the first time, having come across him in the Keyblade Graveyard. The means by which these three characters arrive in these locations are unknown. Based on what we know about how time travel works with the arcs, there appears to be no waypoint or people who have memories of them at their locations. And as far as a medium or vessel to reform at the given time, that seems unclear as well. We do know that all of these characters have no memory of their lives from this time. Neither Marluxia, Larxene, or Ven seem to reference or have any clue they are from the distant past at all. Maybe this is a consequence of ending up at a time where no one who has memories of you is present, meaning the chain of memories is unable to be completed and you will have no memories of yourself to identify you as a person, to remind yourself of your personality or your sense of self. It would seem, however, that an elderly Xehanort discovered Ven shortly after this. We aren't sure when Marluxia and Larxene were brought into the fold, but they would have been found eventually and brought into Organization 13. It is noteworthy that Xigbar, who we now know was Lushu, Xigbar's job in the old organization was to seek out new members, and it was him who found Marluxia. It's possible that he was the one that found Larxene as well and knew of them from the past. Now, with that reveal that Xigbar is Lushu, it is possible that he provided some of the waypoint or partial memories of these characters to fulfill the conditions of the arc time travel and allow these characters to arrive where they did. Anyways, the last shot we see of Ven is lying unconscious in the Keyblade Graveyard as the silhouetted person approaches him. Although we transition to another scene in the same place shortly after, we see a hooded figure walking through the wasteland, dragging the mysterious black box behind them with one hand and carrying the Master of Masters' gazing eye Keyblade in the other. The person pauses and turns to look back the way they came, and they hold the Master's Keyblade aloft as if examining it, while at the same time reciting, "May my heart be my guiding key." And with that, the person pulls back their hood to reveal the face of Brain. Now, there is some speculation here that perhaps in the unseen event between Brain and Lushu while they were talking, it is possible that Lushu took Brain's body as his first vessel. This would be the most logical thought you would have, considering we don't see the conclusion of their conversation as Lushu moved closer to Brain. However, the 12th secret report of Kingdom Hearts 3 seems to suggest this is not the case, with Lushu saying that amidst the chaos of this time, he did pass his Keyblade down to one of the Union leaders. So to me, it's much more likely that Lushu bequeathed the Master's Keyblade to Brain along with the box and settled in for his long role of observing the Keyblade from afar. This could also explain why Lushu/Xigbar is looking for the box in Kingdom Hearts 3. If he truly did hand it off to Brain, he could have lost track of it, and this would justify his reasoning for having Luxord search for it during the events of KH3. We have one last scene that adds a further wrinkle to all of this. The last scene in Union Cross. We see Brain in his regular attire, not the familiar organization cloak, not with the Master's Keyblade, not with the box, lying on the pavement of an unfamiliar city, although we can recognize it as the city the baby Xehanort is born in and then given to the Blue Robe figure. We just saw that flashback as our player chose to be reincarnated. He struggles to his feet and is approached by a hooded man in a purple cloak who calls himself Sigurd. He hands Brain his signature fedora, and Sigurd explains that he was expecting Brain, knowing that he would end up here sometime in this moment. Perhaps Brain did take the last remaining pod into the future, and the fedora would be his medium to arrive here in the city. If Sigurd had knowledge that he would arrive there, whether from the Book of Prophecies or otherwise, that could provide the memories and the waypoint Brain needed to get to this point, time travel in the arc. Brain inquires as to the status of his friends, but Sigurd tells him that Brain is the only person who had arrived in this time. As they walk the city, they pass a large fountain in the square, and in the middle of the fountain protrudes a large platform with a statue of a person on top. As the camera pans to the statue, Sigurd explains that this is the original Keyblade Master of this city and the one who founded this city in the first place, the city of Scala ad Kylum. He tells Brain that the individual depicted in the statue is none other than Master Ephemer. And that is the conclusion of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. Okay, I know that's a lot of information for you. We're going to get into some plot points and speculations, some explanations, a little bit of speculation as to what exactly is going on here, but we don't have concrete answers for all these things. We have things that we can infer based on evidence, but no proof otherwise. So let's start with the conclusion, the thing I just told you. How can Brain seemingly be in two places at once at the end of Union Cross, right? Brain is seen both walking through the Keyblade graveyard with the Master's Keyblade and the black box in the past, and also in the more distant future in his usual attire as he arrives in the city of Scala ad Kylum, where he is apparently expected. The city also just so happens to be built by one of his best friends, or one of his friends, Ephemer. So how does Brain both have the Master's Keyblade and the box, and also arrive without those things in an established Scala ad Caelum? We're not sure, but I would rule out the fact that Lushu possessed Brain based on the 12th Secret Report of Kingdom Hearts 3. Like I said, it is much more likely that Lushu passed on the Keyblade and the box to Brain as his first apprentice. So how can there be two Brains? We don't have an answer, and it hasn't been revealed to us in any of the games so far. But remember, we did see a scene where Lushu appeared to be walking with the data version of Strelitzia when they were in the data world. It's already been established that bodies and people can be partially restored from data. This is how Roxas and Naminé came back. There's literally a Riku replica made from a puppet and data. It's not a stretch to think that maybe Lushu obtained the data backup of Brain from the Data Daybreak Town and sent him into the future, or sent the real Brain into the future and created a copy to be his apprentice in this timeline. Either way, Brain was anticipated to arrive sometime in the future by a society that Ephemer had helped establish. And whether it was Ephemer or the Book of Prophecies, that Ephemer let them know that Brain would be coming to that timeline or to look out for him, we're not sure, but they were expecting him for some reason. When did Ephemer establish the city of Scala ad Caelum, and why does it look different from the one that we see in Kingdom Hearts 3? I know this is a bit of a visual thing. The city that you see in Union Cross seems to be darker and have like dark cobblestone roads, and it has a different style to it than the city that we see in Kingdom Hearts 3, which is like these ringed, almost mini Minas Tirith-like cities that are dotted across all of this large watery expanse. I hate to tell you again, but the answer to all these questions is we're not sure. Remember, we see the scene of Ephemer's silhouette coming out of the Ark Pod as it floats in the water amongst the wreckage of Daybreak Town. We can infer from this point that after this moment, he probably set about establishing the city of Scala ad Caelum, searching for survivors, restoring the realm of light, basically. What caused him to do this? We aren't sure, but remember, before he got in the Ark, Brain bequeathed him with the Master Defender Keyblade and the Book of Prophecies. Perhaps the book told him that he would establish a city, and so he did it. It also stands to reason that the book would have told him that Brain would end up in the city sometime in the future, and this is what would cause him to build the city. Basically, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, so these events could happen, so that it provided the place that Brain could go to. This could also explain how Sigurd knew Brain would arrive at the time he did. Ephemer could have prepped the guardians of the city for Brain's arrival, although this still doesn't help us figure out how there are apparently two Brains in two separate timelines. It should be noted that when the roof caved in on the Daybreak Town Tower, it seems that Skuld and Ephemer got separated across time. Ephemer's pod did not appear to travel into the future. He remained behind in the current time to establish the city of Scala ad Caelum after the Realm of Light's destruction and began rebuilding it, apparently. We don't have confirmation as to where Skuld's pod went, but we speculated back in Kingdom Hearts 3 that it was very likely she was the one that was referred to as Subject X. So guessing that probably she ended up in Radiant Garden, was found by Ansem the Wise and his apprentices. She had no memories of her past life, just the 4 friends and a key, as her report said. And this was the girl that Isa and Lee would sneak in to see. But remember, one day, Isa and Lee came in and this girl was just gone. And the girl writes in her secret report, this Subject X writes in her secret report, that a man with an eye patch just came to get her. So Xigbar Lushu was probably the last person that's seen her. Where is she now? Where is Skuld actually? Next question, who, what, where is the one true Dandelion? Remember, Lushu took one of the pods in the real world. Inside this pod, he placed some kind of white-robed, wrapped thing, and when the darkness asked him what it was, he referred to it as the true Dandelion. Again, we can't be 100% sure who or what this is, but in a later scene, we see Lushu walking through Data Daybreak Town with what we assume is a data version of the slain Strelitzia, as she was wearing a white robe with tufts of red hair sticking out from the hood. This data Strelitzia is the only person who wore this white robe in the entire game, and we even see her in one of Lauriam's hallucinations as he stands by Ven's bedside in this form. but she would have been just data in the real world. Could Lushu send just data into the future? Considering what we know of data worlds and data people, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Ansem the Wise put data inside of Sora's heart. Data can have a heart, as it was established in Space Paranoid's Tron World and in Kingdom Hearts Recoded. This is purely speculation. We saw no form within the white robe Lushu sent to the future, so we can't confirm that it is Strelitzia for sure. Remember, the Dandelions were meant to be the seeds of light that would survive into the future and rebuild the realm of light. So the fact that Lushu referred to this entity as the true Dandelion would represent the ultimate ideal of this plan. What is the status of the 13 Darknesses? This was the whole point of the Master's plan, after all. The Master's ultimate goal was to defeat the 13 prime Darknesses. Okay, bear with me. This is complex. So here's the plan as it was supposed to allegedly go as we thought it would play out. The Foretellers, along with Lushu and the Master of Masters, were meant to trap 7 of the 13 Darknesses in their pure hearts of light. The future Union leaders that survived beyond the Keyblade War were meant to house 5 more in their pure hearts of light: Ephemer, Skuld, Laurium, Brain, and Strelitzia, meaning that 12 of the 13 would be accounted for and could be destroyed as they were trapped in a physical form, leaving 1 remaining. Perhaps it was meant to be permanently trapped within the Data Daybreak Town. The 5 Foretellers would be destroyed during the Keyblade War, taking care of 5 Darknesses. Lushu would make his way into the future and would reunite with the Master of Masters, as would the 5 new Union leaders, where these Darknesses could then be confronted and defeated by a new generation of light-wielding Keyblade wielders. We can be sure that this isn't what happened. This is very clearly not what happened. And whether this was intended by the Master of Masters or his plan is all completely F now, not sure. As far as the Foretellers are concerned, we can only be sure that 4 perished during the Keyblade War. Since Master Ava didn't return at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, it seems that her status is kind of up in the air, meaning that only 4 of the 13 Darknesses would have perished during the Keyblade War. We can't be certain that Ava perished, and the Master and Lushu are obviously still around. 5 Darknesses were supposed to be trapped in the hearts of the new Union leaders, although we know that this too immediately went wrong when one of the Darknesses possessed Ven and used him to murder Strelitzia, who was supposed to be a Union leader and house one of the Darknesses. From what we know of Ven's story, Master Xehanort found him, extracted all the darkness from his heart to form the being Vanitas. Would it be crazy to say that this prime darkness spent some time as Vanitas before being reabsorbed by Ven's heart at the end of Birth by Sleep? This would mean that Ven's heart still has a darkness trapped inside of it. The remaining 4 Darknesses that were supposed to possess the other Union leaders did not do so, but were tricked by our character and trapped in the corridors of the data world. So we can speculate with some degree of confidence, although not absolute confidence, that 4 of the Darknesses were destroyed when the Foretellers were destroyed during the first Keyblade War. 4 of the Darknesses are currently trapped in the corridors of the Data Daybreak Town. 2 should probably still exist inside of the Master and Lushu. 1 speculatively exists within Ven. 1 is unaccounted for, and this is probably the one that had the showdown with Lushu that we didn't get to see in the cutscene that went to black. So either Lushu found a way to defeat it, he took another darkness inside of him, or the darkness simply escaped. But remember, the Foretellers returned at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, so does that mean the darknesses they harbored returned as well? So honestly, I can't say for certain how many darknesses remain or their statuses with any kind of certainty. But remember, at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, a young Ericus and a young Xehanort set out to play a new game on their chessboard. Xehanort sets 7 black pieces on Xehanort's side of the board, while setting the piece that probably represents Sora on his side. So could this mean that there are 7 darknesses left? The 7 pieces could also represent the 5 Foretellers, the Master of Masters, and Lushu. I can't confidently say that 7 darknesses remain, and there's so much confusion as to what actually happened to all the darknesses and the statuses of the Master's plan that it's hard to say for certain. So that's the best accounting I can give you of the status of the 13 darknesses. And I know it's not very good, but that's just some conjecture thrown in there. Okay. What's in the fucking box? I hate to tell you again, but we're currently not sure, but we can guess at a few things. During his conversation with Luxord, Zigbar/Lushu said he heard it contains secrets pertaining to all Keyblade wielders. Maleficent seems to think it contains a copy of the Book of Prophecies. Luxord also tells us during the Pirates of the Caribbean level that the box contains hope. It's heavily implied that the inspiration for this box is the Pandora's box myth from Greek mythology, and hope was one of the only things left in that box when it was opened. Also, there's a scene in Kingdom Hearts Key back cover, the movie, where Master Ava addresses the Dandelions and calls them hope, literally calls them hope. All of this could be reaching, but most things in Kingdom Hearts are usually meaningful and tend to connect somewhere along the line. There are a few theories as to what is actually in the box, and I've only heard 2 that are mostly discussed. Some people think it's the Master of Masters himself. I think that's a bit silly, but I guess given all the advanced Kingdom Hearts concepts, that could possibly make it feasible. And you'd be like, well, why would the Master of Masters himself be in the box? This theory seems to believe that the Master of Masters' disappearance of the world was caused for the same reason that Sora disappeared from the world, and that the Master of Masters, in trying to win an ultimate victory over darkness, abused the power of waking to try and rewrite the timeline several times and was forcibly removed from the universe. That is why he would show up in Quadratum. So in order to not be removed from the universe for trying to rewrite the timeline and win an ultimate victory over darkness and have to do it so many times, he would place himself in this box, which would somehow prevent him from being removed from this universe. That's a really short, really dirty version of that theory. I don't know if I buy that one as much, but again, it certainly is possible. Remember, we've seen the Master of Masters talk to Xehanort sometime in the future, and we see him in Quadratum at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. So we're not 100% sure. I don't really know if I believe that theory. I think the theory that makes the most sense to me is the one that Damo279, again, incredible video that helped me line up all the events for this script. There's one theory that he suggested. He posits the idea that the Data Daybreak Town is inside the box. Think about it. If Luxord says hope is in the box, and Ava called the Dandelions hope, then wouldn't it make sense that the Data Daybreak Town is contained inside the box with its data backups of everyone who was there? Maybe that would be the Master's backup plan. It's already been established that data can be real and can have hearts, and that people can be restored from data as long as their heart has a connection to restore it. Maybe this is what the Master intended when he said that he didn't intend to sacrifice everyone needlessly, that he could restore everyone via data. Maybe that's what he intended. Again, this is purely speculation, and we won't know what's in the box until Nomura tells us what's in the box. But this is one of the lingering plot threads, and I subscribe to the theory that it probably is the Data Daybreak Town. That's what makes the most sense. But this box is one of the biggest mysteries that exists in the series right now. There are many, many other things I could speculate on. I could spend hours speculating on so many different little tidbit points in this story and trying to connect them, but I feel like this has laid out this really, really dense information the best that I possibly can in a digestible way that you can kind of understand what's going on and where all these pieces line up right now. There are holes in this story. There are things that we don't know. We don't know why there are 2 brains. We don't know what the box is. We don't know where all the darknesses are. We don't know what the Master's ultimate plan truly is for all of this. What is he claims he's trying to defeat the 13 darknesses, but when that happens, what's his end goal? Why are the foretellers back? What is Lushu going to do now that he has his Keyblade back? There are lots of holes between this and Kingdom Hearts 3 that we have to fill in the pieces, and we can just kind of guess at the shape of those puzzle pieces right now. We don't have them yet. And we probably won't until we get Kingdom Hearts Missing Link and Kingdom Hearts 4. Missing Link takes place in Scala ad Caelum from what we've seen of it. It takes place during this era where Scala ad Caelum was the place where all Keyblade wielders were from, where they were trained, where they basically had the seat of power, as Xehanort says in Kingdom Hearts 3. So I'm sure when Missing Link does come out, we've heard not very much about it. It was supposed to come out several years ago. It still hasn't. There's been an open beta. From what we know of Missing Link, it should probably fill in some of those questions. And then Kingdom Hearts 4 will, I would assume, start to fill in a lot more of those questions. So what do you have to keep in mind for the future of this series going on from here? Next up is Dark Road. And remember, our player character was reincarnated and was Xehanort's guardian until he was old enough to begin Keyblade training. But remember, a young Xehanort was approached by a time-traveling Ansem and sent into the future to gather members for the new organization, which is how the path was etched on his heart. What will we learn about during Xehanort's youth? What new information will be given to us about him, his relationships, our relationship to him as the major antagonist of this series, his time training as a Keyblade wielder, his friendship with Ericus? Xehanort is being set up as a pivotal character in Dark Road. So what is his connection to the story that we just heard? The Master of Masters talks to Xehanort in the Remind DLC. So Xehanort is a key piece, a key cog in this machine here. We just don't really understand how he fits in it yet. Where are the Prime Darknesses? What are the intentions of the Master? What are the intentions of the Return Foretellers and Lushu? What about Sora, Riku, and Yozora in Quadratum? How does all that tie in? Where did the true Dandelion go? How were their two brains? What happened in the time between Ephemer building Scala ad Caelum and when Brain reappeared there? What are everyone else's connections to this narrative? Did Lauriam and Elrena regain their lost memories when they were defeated as Marluxia and Larxene in Kingdom Hearts 3? What about the mysterious Subject X, who we're assuming is Skuld? Where did she go? What about the Nameless Star? Could Strelitzia still be in the picture somehow? There are many questions to consider, and the only thing that this complex narrative has done is give us many, many more mysteries, many, many more puzzles to try and unravel before it's revealed to us. But we can be sure about one thing. Sora is still in the story, and one way or another, everything will eventually connect to him. That's going to do it for Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. Like I said, I did not lie to you when I said this felt like a final exam of Kingdom Hearts knowledge. There's a lot of advanced concepts in here with data worlds falling into sleep, Arcs being able to travel into the future, the Master literally seeming to build a time machine in the basement of his tower to travel people into the future as hearts, creating this data world to trap the darknesses, everything seemingly gone awry, and we don't know because the Master isn't around. Very, very complex, a lot of advanced concepts. I hope that by the simple fact of listening to this series, if you've binged it or been listening to it as you play along in the game, I hope you've been able to get a grasp and understanding of what is actually going on here and kind of looking at the layered narratives of Kingdom Hearts, because as every Kingdom Hearts game passes, it kind of adds a layer to the narrative. Sora has the Keyblade, and then we get the layer of the narrative of Master Xehanort has been manipulating all these events. And then we get the very broad overarching narrative that this has all been part of the Master of Masters' plan since the beginning of time, or the beginning of this age of the Kingdom Hearts universe. And as these different narratives layer on top of one another, we need to know what the end goal is. What is the end game for this story? How does it wrap up this overarching narrative? And how is Nomura going to implement ideas from Final Fantasy Versus 13 into this story with Yozora and recreating the Versus 13 trailer at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3? These are the things we have to consider. We'll hopefully get some more answers when we look at Xehanort's youth in Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. I have to figure out how I'm going to access that information and how I'm going to do that episode now that that information is no longer easily available. I was going to play the entire game, but I guess I can't do that anymore. And that's really frustrating. And then what will Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory tell us? I know that's just a rhythm game with Kingdom Hearts music, but there actually is plot to that game. And that game is the foremost point of knowledge that we have as to what is going on in the series until we get Missing Link in Kingdom Hearts 4. So that's what we have to look forward to. 2 more episodes until Guiding Keys concludes. It's been a long journey, and we have just a bit further to go. I'd like to thank you guys so much again for tuning in, for listening. You guys make this series so successful and gives me so much joy to work on this and present this information to you. And the nice things that you all say in comments and posts and all that stuff really, really mean a lot to me. Thank you guys so much. You guys, if it wasn't for you, I probably would have quit this a long time ago. Like back in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, I just would have been like, this isn't worth it. I'm out. I understand Kingdom Hearts, but you guys have kept me going at every single turn and have really surprised me with how receptive you've been to this series. If you want to get in touch with me more, you can go to linktr.ee/Unlockables podcast. That's where all of my social media stuff is. You can get me on Instagram. I still have to add Blue Sky because I'm off of X officially now, because X is a dumpster fire, misinformation hellhole, and I have no desire to be there anymore. The community at Blue Sky has been growing, and it's been a really, really cool experience to be able to have like fresh and engaging conversations without bots and the most toxic people coming into those conversations, just hijacking them for rage clicks. It's been great. It's been awesome. So I'll have to add that for sure. You can just join the Discord there. It's a slowly growing community of people that engage with the show and people that I've had on the show before. So if you want to keep in the know as to what's going on in the Unlockables, definitely join the Discord. Share pictures of your pets. Share silly memes. Share the stories of the games you're playing right now. It's that kind of community, and everybody is super, super accepting of what everybody is doing. It's absolutely incredible. If you feel so inclined, you can go over to the Unlockables Patreon, which is once again active. And for $3, you can support the show. You get voting rights on our community game of the month. And I sometimes do some vlogs that I put up of just talking about things that I don't really feel would make a full episode of Unlockables or don't really fit into my show's usual theming. Like my show is usually a lot more about like the story of video games. And if I'll do vlogs, that maybe I'll be talking about like industry stuff if that sort of thing interests you. But voting on the community game of the month has been super, super fun. And we've played some awesome games so far, chosen by community members, and community members have come on those episodes and talked about those games with me. It's been really, really cool. If you feel so inclined to do that, your support would greatly, greatly be appreciated. But for now, we're going to close the book on Kingdom Hearts Union Cross and continue towards the end of Guiding Keys. Always remember, it's not just a story of video games, it's a story of you. And may your heart be your guiding key.